career field by highlighting the career paths of two very successful members of our very own Brandeis community. Throughout the program, I will be asking our panelists a series of questions to promote conversation on tonight's topic. Audience members are encouraged to join in on the conversation by sending us your own individual questions at any time during our broadcast. To ask a question, simply post a question in the chat window or send an email to facultyforum@alumni.brandeis.edu. We also want to thank those of you who submitted questions in advance. So that said, we are very fortunate to have with us tonight Wendy Berliner, graduate from the class of 1995 and Assistant Director of Camp Matoaka, an overnight summer camp for girls in Maine.
Thank you.
And David Bunis, graduate from the class of 1983 and Chief of Staff here at Brandeis University.
Thank you.
Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I think it would be really helpful to start off tonight's program by having the two of you just walk us through your career history, starting with your time in law school. Wendy?
Okay. I graduated from law school in 1998 and took a clerkship with the Connecticut Superior Court, the trial court, where I did a one-year clerkship. And from there I moved to Boston and joined the First Circuit Court of Appeals, where I did a two-year clerkship with the Honorable Judge Bounds. And from there I went to a big firm in Boston, where I was a litigation associate concentrating in employment, litigation, and counseling. Mm-hmm. And I was there for about 7 years before moving on to a small litigation boutique. And then I left the law and went home to be a mom, but realized that I needed to work, that my mind was racing too much, and I became the Assistant Director of Camp Matoaka.
Thank you. And David?
So I graduated from Brandeis in 1983. I took a year off after college and then went to law school. I graduated from law school in 1987 and then went to go work at Nutter, McLennan & Fish, a large law firm in Boston, founded by Justice Brandeis. I stayed at Nutter about 4 or 5 years. Along the way, while I was at Nutter, I actually did a one-year stint as a lawyer at Greater Boston Legal Services, which is a terrific program that Nutter had where they would loan out associate lawyers to go do an internship or a great opportunity to do public service work. And in my case, I spent my time at Greater Boston Legal Services, which was terrific. And after Nutter, I then joined what was then a very small litigation boutique firm, about 6 or 7 lawyers at the time. And the firm focused on white-collar criminal defense, employment and civil rights work, and business litigation. And I didn't know it at the time, but I'd spend the next 20 years there, and the firm grew from 6 or 7 lawyers to about 25 or 30. And we can talk more about what I was doing along the way there, but it was a sort of a terrific period of time to learn the law, build a practice, and then really without me planning on it or looking for it, Fred Lawrence became president of Brandeis, and he was an old friend and asked me to join him here. So in my case, it was not something I was looking for or planning for, but the timing was perfect and the opportunity was really something I couldn't say no to. So here I am.
Fantastic, and we're lucky to have you here.
Yep.
Why did you decide to transition out of a legal career into a new profession, Wendy?
Well, for me, I turned around and realized I was a senior associate in a big firm, in a wonderful firm, but I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be a partner in a big firm. I had a lot of competing interests at that point. I had a small child at home, and I felt like I couldn't be the best of everything. And the perfectionist in me, I was a good lawyer. I wanted to be a great lawyer. Mm-hmm. I was a good mom. I wanted to be a great mom. And I felt like being in a big firm, there was too much pulling me the other way. And I thought that by leaving a big firm and going to a smaller litigation boutique that I would have more control of my own life, and therefore I could be the mom that I truly wanted to be. And it didn't quite turn out that way. I think, a lot of us probably feel like with being a lawyer, especially a litigator, your time really isn't your own. And there are so many deadlines that there really is no movement for. Mm-hmm. And so I left to be a mom, at least for a short period of time, I thought. And I think the more that I stopped and looked, I wasn't happy being a lawyer. There was a lot I loved about being a lawyer, but I realized that there was more that I could do. And so it became kind of a natural transition. I said, what else can I do? Mm-hmm. And, you know, the path takes you in strange places.
And so how did Camp Matoaka come about?
I did a lot of soul searching at that point. You know, I was home with, at that point, two kids, but they were off in school and daycare, and I found that I had a lot of time on my hands, and I loved work. And, you know, that's what I think for me was the draw to go back to work, that I couldn't just be a mom. So I met with you, Meredith, and others in the Career Center to try to figure out what I wanted to do, what I would be good at doing, how I could use my law degree to do something else. And I did a lot of soul searching on that, you know, try to figure out what made me happy. And I think by talking that through, I realized, okay, these are the things I enjoy about the law, these are the things I don't. These are the parts of my life that I was the most happy. And for me, that was being at camp. And, you know, so I started volunteering for different organizations that made me happy. You know, whether I was working here at Brandeis with the mock trial team because I enjoyed the teaching of that, I enjoyed being back on campus, or, for example, Camp Matoaka, where that was my love. I was a camper and counselor my whole life till the day I went to law school. And so I was volunteering with them. Our 60th reunion was approaching, and basically I spearheaded that. And the next thing you know, if you're doing something you love, it could turn into a job, which I never would have been able to dream. So
And
do what you like.
You were in the right place,
Right place, right
volunteering,
time.
Job opened up.
Right.
Fantastic. Fantastic. David, why did you decide to make the transition at the time that you did?
So as I talked briefly about before, so it was more sort of an opportunity falling into my lap with me being at the right place in my career, and, you know, a good friend of mine offering me a position that seemed like the perfect fit for me at the time. But really, if you look back on it in my career too, there were points along the way that, you know, looking back on it, I sort of can see it made some sense that I ended up back at Brandeis. From the earliest days working at Nutter, I was in the litigation department, but we were representing colleges and universities. And so those cases were always my favorites. They weren't the biggest cases at the time, or not necessarily the most complex or challenging, but I loved being in college, and sort of the notion of going back onto campus and going to visit the client at one or another of the university clients that we had always felt very comfortable to me. And so even after I left Nutter and then went into a litigation boutique firm, the business sort of followed me. It was the other part of the business where I came to sort of have this niche practice of representing students and professors and university administrators and the like in all sorts of cases, civil, criminal, administrative, sometimes contract negotiations, sometimes on the way in, sometimes on the way out. But that sort of became a steady staple of the work that I did for 25 years. Again, small stuff along the way, but you could sort of connect the dots and see that it maybe was pointing in a certain direction. But as I said before, for me, I wasn't looking, but I do think that, you know, if people are sort of looking for advice along the way, it's pay attention to what you like doing. And so if you're practicing law and there's a certain case that you like, or a certain type of transaction, or a certain business that in a client that you represent, and that's intriguing to you, look into it, right? It may not be right for you then or now, but, you know, who knows down the road a piece where you may find yourself in a position. The other thing is that you sort of establish relationships all along the way. You know, a client becomes a friend, and a friend may down the line be in a position to make something happen for your career. And it's reciprocal too. So, you know, you could be there for that person 2 jobs down the line, and you see how pretty quickly the world seems much smaller.
Reciprocal networking, relationship building, there's so much to that, absolutely. So I'm curious, what skills, specific skills or knowledge areas do you use in your current position that you may have used when you were an attorney? Wendy?
I think right off the bat, most lawyers are people-oriented, and they're used to dealing with people, whether they were nice people or not, the difficult clients or the easy clients. You learn to navigate, those paths and, those relationships. And so I think, moving into a camp setting where everything is people-oriented. I'm dealing with parents, and I'm dealing with campers, and I'm dealing with vendors and other businesses. And I find that, just being able to talk to people, whether it's the 8-year-old child or the parent, I learned those skills by being a lawyer. I do all of the recruiting. So I was an employment lawyer. It was a natural transition. As David says, I dealt with people on the way in and on the way out. And, that's what I'm doing now. A lot of, contract negotiations, vendor contracts, things like that. So, I think just being able to think, is something that's, was a skill that I learned as a litigator. So.
Fabulous. David?
So I think the skills you pick up as a lawyer, whether you're a transactional lawyer or a trial lawyer, are invaluable to anything you might do in life. In my case, I think being a good listener is a quality that suits a lawyer well and can't hurt out in the real world either. If you can really listen to somebody, explain what it is that is on their plate, a problem that they have, without interrupting them, to tell them what you think before they're done. That's sort of a lawyerly skill that you pick up along the way, is you gather facts and then work your way through to a solution. And the other thing is that especially as a litigator, my cases always involved, as I said before, a new business or a new technology, and sometimes at the same time. So you've got to get the key to being, I think, successful in one career and another is you sort of got to have an open mind to a new idea or a new concept. Try to put yourself in the position of the person who is the client. And here at Brandeis, in my current job, try to put myself in the position of whoever it is, the faculty member, the other staff member, the student, the trustee or the alum. Just try to see the world from their perspective, and then it really helps in terms of trying to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to do. So I don't think there are any skills that are particularly lawyer skills. They're sort of life skills, and without much trying, you can apply them pretty easily to the next thing you do.
Fantastic. I was going to say that you need to be a good active listener as a career counselor as well. So I definitely identify with that, do that every day. So I'm curious, what's one piece of golden advice that you would both give to someone who's potentially looking to make a career change from the law into something brand new?
Hands down, be happy. It sounds so cliche, but if you're doing something you enjoy, you're going to be good at it. And for me, it was just trying to find what I was happy doing, and that became a job. And I never could have imagined this. And it's been perfect, but it's because I'm doing something that I truly love, that I'm truly passionate about, and just network. Talk to people. As David said, you never know who's going to help you, who you're going to help. Those friendships, those mentors, those business associates, you never know what opportunity they could present to you. So
be nice to everybody.
Be nice to everyone and be happy.
Yeah. Well, I just think if you don't like what you're doing, stop and do something else. Life's too short to sort of continue if you're miserable in your job, or find something in your job that you really, really like to do, and then pursue that and try to make your career out of that. And if you don't like where you're working or the area or the practice of law that you're in, then be flexible enough and be a risk taker enough to at least explore some other things, because we were saying before, time goes by very quickly, and before you know it, you can turn around and wish you'd made a move years earlier, and then for whatever reason, either the opportunity passed you by or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time or something like that. So, if you're feeling unhappy in your legal job, I just think don't ignore it. Try to either make it work where you are or go out and try to explore alternatives, because you're not going to have a second chance if you wait too long.
Excellent advice, yes.
And Meredith, if I may, David says a great thing. Take a risk.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's very scary. You've put yourself through law school. You're probably in a lot of debt, or you've worked, for many years building these relationships. It's hard to walk away. It's hard to walk away from, people say, oh, you're a lawyer. That's a professional job. They think you're high-powered and you make a lot of money. It's hard to walk away from that stuff. But take a risk. And if you're not happy, try something else. You can always go back.
Good. Good advice. So I think we're going to take some questions from our audience now. And actually, one of the questions that's come in is kind of to your point, Wendy. How do you adjust to the salary change? Obviously, as a lawyer, you command a certain salary, and then when you transition into something else, potentially that salary is no longer there. How do you adjust to that change?
You have to adjust to that change. You have to make some choices. There's always give and take. I gave up a very high-paying salary, but I don't have to do dry cleaning anymore. It's little things like that, where I bring my lunch or I go to camp and I get fed. There are trade-offs. So when you look at the whole package, it's not really giving up as much as you'd think. But don't get me wrong, it's very hard to give up that paycheck. But when it comes down to it, if you're happy, then it's worth every penny that you gave up.
Excellent. So. David, do you have anything to say on the topic?
I would just say that if you're making a good salary in the job that you're in, don't spend it all. Right? Part of what made it possible for me to make this transition to my present job was that I hadn't spent it all along the way, and it can make a difference. I never want to be in a position where I said to myself, look, I'd love to have taken that job, but I just can't afford it. That would seem bad to me. And so the temptation all along the way, especially when you're working hard, especially when you're at a big firm, especially when you're feeling stressed, is to go to Cancun or go to Hawaii or buy a Jag. And if you can treat yourself along the way to enough that'll make you reasonably happy, but live within a certain budget so that you can have the flexibility when you need to or you want to make a move to a sort of a more satisfying but a lower paying position. I think that's the key, because you can get addicted to making a lot of money, and it can be more constricting than you think if you spend it all along the way.
Sound advice. Another question from our audience. From a recent grad, it looks like, or potential recent grad. What can recent law school graduates do if they don't want to practice law in the traditional sense, but lack experience and don't necessarily have the contacts that David already had lined up?
Well, the President of the United States didn't practice law, right? He went to become a community organizer and found his way to the White House. So just be unconventional in the way you're thinking about things. A professor of mine from law school said, when I talked to him during law school about what I would do after law school graduation, he said, well, look, you're no less qualified to do any job now that you have a law degree. It's not that your focus is any narrower, it's just that you're more qualified to do a whole bunch of different jobs. So, you can sort of get tunnel vision, especially if you go to a top-tier law school or somebody that's sort of funneling you into large firms in big cities that are, paying the top salary to own you for 2,000 hours a year. And, there are jobs in public service, there's government jobs, there are judicial clerkships are a great way. In the Superior Court of many states around the country, you don't have to do a federal clerkship, you can do a state court clerkship. You can go into teaching. and I wouldn't necessarily look at the first job you get as the ultimate career that you're going to do. I mean, I'm not a professional career person, but I've had lots of friends who are lawyers who either started out doing something different or took one, twist or turn in their career along the way, and invariably it sort of made them, a better lawyer or better in whatever career they ended up doing because of the varied experience.
Of course.
So I guess the advice is, don't think that working at a law firm is the only job that you're qualified to do.
Fantastic. I have a question from Jeff. It sounds like both of you were simply fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. Do you have any advice for someone who has to try to open doors to pursue a new opportunity? Wendy?
I think I was in the right place at the right time because I was looking to pursue a new opportunity and because I was using skills both that I learned as a lawyer and that were just innate within me. It wasn't necessarily my connections that got me this job. It was doing something that I like to do. And I think you shouldn't undermine the fact that even if you haven't worked for 25 years, you still know people. And you'd be surprised at the people who might be the next opportunity for you. It could be your friends, in law school or in college or a parent of them. You never know. So you don't have to have those people lined up immediately. Talk to everybody because that's when that opportunity may arise. I think that if I were to stop and say, okay, where are my opportunities? I probably wouldn't be in this job because I would have just been knocking on the doors of the next opportunity because there are opportunities everywhere, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted. So I just kept talking to people, and that's when, something just happens, and that became the opportunity that I wanted to pursue.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's all about relationships. And sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, and sometimes it takes a lot more work than that. But where you end up, it may be because you got back in touch with a kid you grew up with, or somebody that you reconnected with on Facebook, or a Brandeis connection. I have this B-Connect story of a classmate of mine from Brandeis who I hadn't spoken to in 15 years or 20 years, but he was a lawyer in Connecticut and I was a lawyer in Boston, and through our Brandeis connection we sort of reconnected and ended up sending business one to the other over a couple-year period of time. And it was just a way to, it was enjoyable, right? I mean, we were friends when we were here at Brandeis. I enjoyed reconnecting with them. But it's just another case of you never know where that's going to lead. And sort of keep an open mind with your friends, your business associates, your clients, your cousins, whatever. If people are doing something that they enjoy doing or that you can see yourself doing, don't be shy about saying, just getting that conversation going and saying, I like what I'm doing, but I'd like to hear more about your job doing X, Y, or Z. And it's not that hard a conversation to have. And if you're open with people and you sort of, look to your friends and the people you work with and the people you've met along the way, then chances are the opportunity won't seem as random when it happens if you're sort of conscious of it along the way.
Yep. And just to kind of build off of something you just said, David, B-Connect, as David mentioned, is the Brandeis University online alumni directory and is truly a fantastic tool where you can reach out to hundreds, thousands of your fellow alumni in different fields from across different geographic locations. So that is certainly something that we can send you a link to at the conclusion of this program so that you can access the alums in the database. We can also send you links to, we have a variety of professional Brandeis networking groups on LinkedIn as well that you can utilize. And something that we do at the Hyatt is coach you on how to have an effective informational interview. There are many, many people who maybe networking isn't their thing, maybe you're a little shy. We can certainly help you with that. Happy to do so. So I'm seeing another question from our audience, from Amy. How should someone looking to enter an entirely different field use their legal expertise as a selling point when you lack experience in the new field you're seeking to break into? For example, event planning or the food and hospitality industry.
I think you're always going to use the skills that you learned as a lawyer. And if you're trying to break into a new field, talk up those skills. You know, explain what you're good at and what you liked about being a lawyer. You know, maybe it's you're great with time management, you're great, you're a great thinker, you're analytical, you're good under pressure. You know, whatever it is that you're good at, those skills are going to transfer to any field. And I think that if people see that you enjoyed what you were doing or what you were good at, that will correlate to whatever field that they're in. You know, so as long as you're a professional, I think that it doesn't matter what field you're in. I'm surprised at how similar being a lawyer even in a big litigation, a big firm where I did litigation, to my camp office. You know, I went from being in a downtown law firm with, you know, more than 100 lawyers to an office in the suburbs with 2 people. Yet I'm using the same skills. And so it doesn't really, I mean, my jobs couldn't be more different. But you just have to talk up the skills that you're good with a computer. I mean, they seem simple, but you're a fast learner. It'll make you good at whatever field you're trying to break into.
Right. And you get to wear jeans in this.
And I get to wear jeans, yes, every day.
That's a good talking point right there.
It's great. I mean, I haven't put on this suit in a long time.
That's good. I mean, I think that being the fact that you're a lawyer is itself a credential that will open doors for you, even if it's not for a legal job, right? I mean, there are all sorts of job listings for people who are organized and who are strategic thinkers, people who are good working with others and have a facility with words or with numbers. And these are all sort of lawyerly skills, but sometimes the JD degree is something that will certainly make you an unusual candidate if you're applying for a non-legal job, and will often catch the attention of somebody saying, hey, I got a resume from a lawyer here. You know, I got 1,000 CPAs, or I have 1,000 other things like this. But it may just be the thing that differentiates you from somebody else and gets your foot in the door for an interview. And then, you know, it's what you make of it.
Sure.
But being the person with the different profile or the different credential can itself be something that makes the difference for you. I was also going to say that on the question of relationships, that as a lawyer, I always met with or agreed to meet with a Brandeis alum who called up looking to network for a job over 25 years, right? So people who were no, but it's something that if you're tuned into this webinar, you should do it for somebody else, and if you're looking to make a change and you sort of you see an industry or you Google a business or some institution, chances are you'll find somebody with a Brandeis connection there. And don't be shy about calling them up or emailing them and just saying, look, you know, I'm from the class of, 83, and, will you have a cup of coffee with me?
Yep.
And in my experience, I always said yes.
Yep.
And, there's sort of a group of alums out there that I think are really willing and happy to help out fellow alums. So don't be shy, it's just advice, but don't be shy about asking, and be generous when you're asked.
Fantastic. And also to build off what David was saying, we literally have templates on the Hyatt Career Center website that you can use and tweak for those initial outreach emails or for those initial outreach phone calls. So again, if you're someone who wants a little help before you get started, we are happy to provide that help to you. And also, as both David and Wendy were talking about, the importance of just marketing those transferable skills. Something else we can help you with at the Career Center is helping you, first of all, to really key in on what are those strengths that you have, the transferable strengths, and helping you to articulate those on your resume, in your cover letter, and of course then translating that verbally into how you'd present yourself at a networking event, a dinner, or in a job interview. So just want to let you know that the help is there if you need it. And we have another question, it looks like, from Jessica. Does your ego have to adjust with your salary? You're not a lawyer anymore. How does that affect you and how your colleagues treat you? Would you ever return to practice? Why or why not?
Well, Jessica, first of all, I'm always a lawyer. Still a lawyer. In fact, I like to call myself a recovering lawyer. But yes, it is something that I needed to think about. And for me, the hardest part was telling my dad that I wasn't going to be a lawyer anymore. I mean, it took a long time for me to be able to say to my family, is it okay with you if I'm not a lawyer? That was something that I struggled with for a while. But quite frankly, I'm always a lawyer. I'm still an attorney. In fact, I'm still admitted in 3 states, and I continue to pay my bar dues to 3 states because I'm proud of it. It's something that I worked very hard to achieve. And it's something I'm very proud of. I loved being a lawyer, but it just wasn't the right time anymore, and it wasn't the right job at that point in my life. I might go back to it. You never know where life will take you. You never know if Camp needs a lawyer in any of these states. You just never know. But yes, to answer your direct question, it was something I needed to get used to because, you know, as she asks, people think of lawyers, they put lawyers on a pedestal. And so it was hard to adjust to that at first. But, you know, it works out quite well. And you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I just got here, so I haven't really adjusted to not being a practicing lawyer. But on the second part of the question, which was sort of, can I envision returning to the practice of law? Sure. You know, I think that, as I said, I always enjoyed practicing law, and as we've talked about for a while, the skills are there, and you know, it's something that I think that you can get back into if you want to later on. So I don't think, part of the great thing about being a lawyer is that it doesn't pigeonhole you into anything in particular, and that you'll always have that credential that, you know, what do they say, you can always hang a shingle, right? So, you know, it really is true. So, you know, if you want to move to a small town in Vermont and you want to go be a practicing lawyer in a small town in Vermont, you can do it. And a lot of people sort of go from a career in a big city and they want to retire or they want to move away, and because of the JD and the admission into a state to practice law, there's always all sorts of possibilities for you.
Sure.
And that may be, it's not unique, but it's a particular quality about being a lawyer that is, it's great. It's sort of job security in a sense for life, as long as you're willing to sort of be entrepreneurial and to a certain extent be a risk taker. Then, you know, it's not something that you do and give up. It's something you always are,
Part of your
no matter
identity.
what you're doing.
Great. So we have a question from Ross. How do you transition into business or nonprofit where you aren't doing anything associated with the law, not merely practicing outside of a law firm? I think you can both speak to that.
You just do it. You just jump. I mean, you take a risk. I'm not sure whether his question is if you're somewhat practicing, if your job has anything to do with being a lawyer, but if you're strictly leaving the law, you just do it. You know, and you do change. For me, it was a change of lifestyle because my life slowed down a little bit, and I could concentrate on being a mom. Whereas I think others, if they're simply transitioning from being a lawyer associated with a law firm and then transitioning into a business, you just do it. And you just throw yourself into that business, you learn that business, and you become part of that community as opposed to the law firm community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Yeah.
I agree. I just think that go where your interest lies and do the thing that's completely different. It doesn't mean...
Take a risk.
Yeah, just take a risk.
Do it. All right. Ben asks, how do you indicate that you are in fact interested in being something other than a lawyer rather than someone who is biding time in a non-law job until they find something better? David?
I think just be honest about, your circumstances. If you're, look, the economy has been tough on everyone, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there, and lawyers as well, who may have been let go by big firms when they were shedding jobs in 2009 and 2010. Some of that hiring has come back, and some of it just hasn't yet. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there, and maybe some of them are watching this webinar right now, who are sort of looking either to get back into the law or to do the next thing. And so, I just be authentic. That's what's going to land you the right position for yourself. Don't fake it just to try to get the next job, because you probably won't be happy there, and it won't help you in your career. But at the same time, if you need to do certain things, like you can temp, right? You can work as a temp lawyer. There are lots of different firms in Boston and throughout the country that help place lawyers in temporary positions for a month or 2 or 6 months, and who knows where those jobs lead. And especially as the economy recovers, lots of law firms are hiring more contract lawyers. The benefits may not be as good, but it's a pretty good paycheck along the way. And if it works out, it may work out fine, and the law firm may end up picking you up. And if not, I have friends that have found that they really enjoy doing the contract work more because they work when they want and they don't when they don't want to. And they can take the summers off or go on vacation and not worry about it and sort of go from one gig to the next. Especially if you're successful and you sort of find a niche that you like to do, then you can be one of those contract lawyers that's always in demand and make a pretty good living at it. So it's just sort of another thing that you might not necessarily think of, but it can pay very well, and it can be a really flexible lifestyle.
Yeah, fantastic. We have a question from Tricia. How does this advice apply to people in today's economy where law school graduates have a difficult time just finding a legal job, and when other jobs now require an advanced degree?
I think now more than ever, you need to be flexible, and you need to network, and you need to use all of your resources, whether you're looking to start your career right out of law school, or whether you're looking to make a change within the law or outside of the law. You need to be flexible. You need to talk to people. You need to work those relationships that you had. It doesn't matter where you are in your career.
Yep.
Network, use the relationships, talk to people, and find what makes you happy.
I'd say, if you're just getting out of law school right now and you have some flexibility, volunteer. There's businesses out there, there's nonprofits, there's government agencies that themselves are wishing, they're dealing with budgets that are half of what they might have been 5 years ago. And so, but if you, again, can present yourself as somebody who's willing to work, even to work for nothing for a period of time, like while you're studying for the bar, or while you're waiting for your bar exam results, or in the weeks or months after graduation from law school, or any period of time that you have, read Lawyers Weekly or whatever the lawyer's newspaper is where you live. Read the newspaper, see if there are opportunities, and then literally just call them up. There's lots of stories of people who literally present themselves and say, look, I'll work for free, and it leads to something and can lead to something quickly. And I do know that the state court system in Massachusetts is really budget constrained right now. Their budget for law clerks has been cut way back, but there are opportunities to go and to volunteer, to help the judges and help the clerks and help sort of the administrative aspect of the judicial system. And that's a way to get sort of known by judges, to get known by lawyers. And if you're good, they'll help you out. They'll probably help you find a job.
Fantastic. And again, I have to put a plug in for the resources that we have at the Hyatt Career Center. We do have wonderful career exploration and job search resources that you can take advantage of through our website across sectors, nonprofit, government, private sector. So please, we are going to send you the link after the program this evening so you can take a look at our alumni career services links. I think that's a really good place to start. And then, of course, if you want some individual coaching, you can just call the Hyatt Career Center and schedule an appointment. We work with alumni over the phone. We work with you via Skype, and of course you can also, if you're local, come on in person. And I'll put a little plug in right now. Our telephone number is 781-736-3618, 781-736-3618. All right, so let's see. Jessica asks, were there particular individuals, books, role models, or other sources that were instrumental in your career shift? Good question, Jessica.
I think everybody is instrumental in your career shift, because everybody has a different perspective about either what another opportunity is like, or what you're like, or what they do, and so that you can learn what they're doing, see if you like it. I'll plug Hyatt as well, because for me, I went in to try to figure out what it was I really loved about being a lawyer, and what it was about me that I wanted to show the world and show my next job. Meredith helped me, the Career Center helped me, my mentors both inside and outside the law. I think a lot of the senior partners in my big law firm were even happy to help me find something to transition outside the law.
So you're
don't
open
be
with
afraid.
them. You're open with them that you're looking to make the change.
Anybody you trust, because they know people and they knew me and they knew what would make me happy. And although I think they were sorry to lose me from their firm, I think they realized that I would be happier and my skills would be used better elsewhere. And so they put me in touch with other people. So anybody could be a mentor or a friend or a colleague. So talk to everybody.
Talk to everybody.
Yeah, talk to everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think that you don't necessarily have one mentor along the way. You can have many or a few, and it can change over time. In my case, I was saying before that one of the senior partners at Nutter, who was my first boss out of law school, is somebody that I've actually maintained a relationship with since 1987. And things come full circle. He's a lawyer. We both moved on from Nutter, but he's a lawyer that I actually work with now. It's been a great relationship. I've learned a lot from him over the years. Also, after having worked at a big firm, there's a network of people from the firm and from the alumni network of the law firm. In any big law firm, there tends to be people who come and go over time. But I have a group of friends that were with me at Nutter for years, and who form my closest circle of professional friends out there. Most of them have moved on from Nutter. I think basically all of them have probably moved on from Nutter by this time. Now, they're not strictly speaking mentors, but they're sort of your circle of friends and colleagues along the way.
Yeah.
When when you're practicing law, they're the people you call up and say, "Hey, let me run something by you." Even after you leave the law firm, they're the people in life who you say, "Let me run something by you," and it's the same question, really. The thing you want to run by them may be, I got a crazy idea. I'm thinking of not being a lawyer anymore, or I'm thinking of going and working. Will you talk with me about it? And especially your lawyer friends, I think, the people who you've grown up with professionally and spent a lot of time with, they know you and will probably be helpful to you find the next thing that's right for you. So sometimes a mentor isn't somebody who's much older with gray hair. It can be the person in the office next to you, or the person that you felt like you grew up with in the litigation department or the corporate department, and you've moved on now, but they're the people you keep in touch with.
Fantastic. I'm also going to put another plug in for actually an assessment that we offer at the Hyatt Career Center. It's called Type Focus. It's a wonderful self-assessment tool. It takes about 30-40 minutes to complete, and it will give us a snapshot of your personality type and your transferable skills, and it will actually give us some suggested career clusters, and within those career clusters, actual job titles that might be a potential good fit for you moving forward. So that, again, is a link that we can send you. It's something that you can start on your own from your computer at home. Then, of course, we do encourage you to get in touch with the Career Center so that we can go through the assessment with you in a fairly thorough thorough way to help get you started. So let's see, we have another question from Jeff. HR departments are cherry picking. How do you recommend a transitioning attorney get past that? David?
Jeff, what do you mean by cherry picking? I don't know if that means that they're picking the best candidates without going through sort of an organized job search process, and so you're not getting the attention to your resume that you might think you want to or that you deserve, if that's what you mean by cherry picking.
Yeah.
And I don't have any particular advice for that.
Not quite sure. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think, yes, you need to legally go through and apply for a position through the HR department, especially for large organizations. You need to upload that cover letter and resume onto the website of the organization. But then I would also encourage you to try to find somebody within the organization, within a particular department that you want to work for, and email them your application directly. You gotta take risks, and again, that's something that we can cancel you on in terms of, how do you find a contact within an organization so that you're applying through the legal parameters through HR, but also trying to get in another way.
And again, the alumni contact may be a
Yeah.
great way to get in the door.
Absolutely.
I mean, if in fact you submit your resume through the HR department, but then you can have a follow-up meeting or a meeting that precedes it with an alum,
Yep.
sometimes your resume will get more attention if it's accompanied by a cover letter or a note or an email from an alum who's within the institution. So.
Certainly. Very good point. Let's see. Craig asks, how did you know you had exhausted all legal jobs and were now ready to go for a job outside of the law completely? Wendy?
I didn't. I had no idea. Quite frankly, I wasn't sure that I had exhausted all legal jobs. And in fact, that's why I won't get rid of my bar admissions, because you never know. Right now, this is the perfect job for me. Who knows if that's going to change, even in 10 years. So I think it was a great opportunity that I couldn't pass up at the time. It doesn't mean, it's not going to change. So I think for me, I was looking at everything. I was looking at legal jobs and non-legal jobs. I was just looking to do something slightly different from what I was doing.
So I think lawyers can be risk averse. Right? So, the question is, how do you know? And, sometimes you don't know. And my friends who are in the finance business or in the investment business, they've sort of moved around over the years, much more so than my lawyer friends, who tend to be they just take fewer risks. And so it's all about your personality, and I don't know if this is golden advice or anything like that, but look, if you're not a risk taker, then you're just not a risk taker. But if you wait around until you have absolute 100% certainty that something is the case, you may have waited too long. And sometimes these things are just a leap of faith, and so if you follow your interest, hopefully a job will materialize. And until that happens, then volunteer, then do contract work, then find something in the meantime to fill up your professional time. But try to keep your eye on what interests you and sort of be authentically you. Don't pretend to be somebody who's described in the job listing, because that's the job that's out there. And unfortunately, the economy is sort of coming back right now, and I do think that the market for lawyers is increasing, and increasingly there are lawyers that are doing unconventional jobs, not typical lawyer jobs, not just a law firm. There are lawyers that are in government positions, that are lawyers that are working for nonprofits and in higher education, and so sort of expand the scope of your job search, and you may find that the legal credential and sort of the recovering economy are a good combination for finding you a job. It may be in a place that you never expected to be, but it may turn out that that sort of making the move to either a different profession or to a new job is the less risky move, because sometimes staying is riskier, right? The firm you're at may not be around in 10 years. The business that you're working for right now, who knows what that will look like. And making the move may in fact be the conservative play rather than the more risky one. So it's just a different way to look at it.
Excellent. Robin. Robin says, as a full-time lawyer and a mother of a small child balancing work and home, it's very difficult. What are some good ways to find opportunities that offer a flex schedule or telecommuting? Wendy, any comments there?
That's a tough one. I went to law school. One of the reasons I went to law school was because I thought it would be a good profession for a mother. And it is in many instances. I think it depends on what type of career you have, what type of legal job you have. As a trial lawyer in a big firm, I had certain flexibility, but not. In some cases I had flexibility, in others I didn't. The court had their deadlines, and there was nothing that I could do about those. But, with the partners that I worked with, they knew me, and they knew the work was going to get done. Whether I did it at home, whether I did it at 3 in the morning, it didn't matter as long as it got done. I earned my reputation. I earned my keep. They knew that they could trust me and count on me. I was reliable. But I think if you're starting out, I can't tell if she's starting out and looking for something or if she's already there. It's hard, and you need to prove yourself. You need to prove that you can do both. I think a lot of employers will admire the fact that you're a mom and you're a full-time lawyer. It means you can do a heck of a lot of balancing, and I think that's a great skill. And it's one that you shouldn't be afraid of talking about in some instances, depending on where you're going. I think that, it's a quality that will serve you well. You're good with time management, you're good in emergencies. All the things that make you a good mom will make you a good lawyer. But it's a tough balancing act, and I think you need a lot of support from the outside, whether that's, child care or a good spouse or friends, because sometimes one may pull greater than the other.
Certainly.
But, I think if you prove yourself that the work is going to get done, they don't care where you do it. Whether you telecommute or you do it at odd hours, as long as it gets done, your clients are happy, the lawyers you're working with are happy, and it won't matter.
Right. I can think of, off the top of my head, 2 resources that potentially could be helpful to find either part-time or contractual work. One is a website perhaps many of you are already familiar with. It's Indeed.com. It's just a job search aggregator that pulls jobs off of all the major job boards online. And you can put in a keyword search, and you can put in a geographic search, and it will give you a listing of opportunities, full-time, part-time, and contractual. You'll see that in the left-hand toolbar. So that's a really good go-to resource. There's another organization I recently learned of called TAPP, T-A-P-P, that could also be helpful in making you aware of part-time opportunities that could be good for moms that are looking to juggle career and children. So it looks like we have time potentially for one more question. Let's see. Jonathan, at what point should I stop looking for an area of law that I like and cut my losses and move on to graduate school for clinical psychology? David?
Go now, Jonathan. The question, I think, what do they say? To ask the question is to answer it. It seems like Jonathan wants to go to graduate school, and it comes back to the same sort of risk-taking profile, and what amount of evidence is going to satisfy you that you know, right? It seems to me that Jonathan is interested in clinical psychology, and I'd go for it. You can always go back and practice law if that's where things take you down the road. But there are lawyers who are clinical psychologists. There are clinical psychologists who are lawyers, and the combination of the two degrees and professions may make you sort of uniquely qualified to do the thing that you don't even know about right now, but may be the perfect job.
Good point. Well, it appears as if that's all the time we have for our program this evening. I would like to thank wholeheartedly David Bunis and Wendy Berliner for being here this evening. We so appreciate you being so generous with your time and advice. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues in the Alumni Relations Office and our wonderful production crew here tonight who helped to make this program possible. We'll be sending a follow-up email to all program participants with links to our Hyatt Career Center Alumni Career Services web pages and a feedback survey. To get started on your own career exploration or career transition process, please visit Hyatt Career Center's Career Services, Alumni Career Services webpage at www.brandeis.edu/Hyatt/alumni/services. You are also invited to attend our next online program, Breaking into the World of Publishing, sponsored by Hyatt Career Center and the Brandeis Alumni Association, taking place on Wednesday, June 15th at 7 p.m. Again, you can visit our website for further details and to register for that program. We do hope you found this tonight's program to be instructive and enjoyable, and we look forward to bringing you more programs like this in the future. Thank you for joining us, and have a great night.